Okay, this is the start of the iteration video example problem. We're going to use the same problem we did in the last one, which is Sam's Auto Sales Company. And we're only going to change a few things, but they will make a big impact on the problem because they will mean that we'll have to add some iteration to solve the problem. First of all, we're going to, instead of having the customer enter the data of the car that they want on the showroom floor on the keyboard, we're going to have that data come in from a disk file. And that's reflected here in the change in the wording. The cars will be input from a disk file. Okay, so we'll go down, see what other changes are involved here. Everything in black, there is no change. So the problem remains the same. We'll have to still do the same code for a good deal of the problem. So we're only enhancing this problem or changing it to work with a disk file. And with this problem here that we're about to talk about, we're going to add this to the current existing problem from before. At the time of purchase, the customer can purchase up to 5 oil changes with an additional $5 savings for each oil change purchased. This package oil change offer should be added to the total cost of the car and a message that reads, "You have elected to save so many dollars in oil changes with your purchase of your car." This message should only appear if the customer has taken advantage of this offer. If they haven't taken advantage of the offer, there will be a 0 for the number of oil changes. So up here, this is a further change. The customer will have to enter the model name. They no longer do that. The arrangement of the data on the input file is the following. First will be the car model. As before, it'll either be Pluto, Asteroid, or Pulsar. Then those extras of sunroof, leather seats, custom speakers, built-in retractable child seat, and a convertible, all with a yes or no answer, will come in that order. And then the number of oil changes will be next. The valid numbers there are 0, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 1 is not an option for this offer, so to put a 1 in here wouldn't make any difference because whatever the current default charge for an oil change is, and I think in this case we have it as 80, they'll be charged $80 if they enter a 1 for the oil change. There will be no savings involved. If they enter 0, that means they are not taking advantage of this offer and they do not want to have it added to the price of their car. If they enter 2 or anything above 1, there will be a savings. At 2, the first oil change, as I said, was 80. The second oil change would be 75, a $5 savings. If they enter 3, the third oil change would be $70, and the fourth would be 65, and the fifth finally would be 60. These two changes, that of adding in the fact that it's coming from a disk file, will necessitate us to use a loop because we'll need to process the input disk file record per record till we're done with the end of file. Those of you who are doing the lab assignment that deals with the disk file, most of you are having to do that, will be most interested in looking at this change to this example. And for those of you that also have a nested situation in solving this problem, we're also going to have to use an iteration, or we should, because we can just subtract $5 from the default value each time and accumulate those savings, and that's an iterative process. So this is an iterative process within the iterative process for the disk file. And then the user has approved this as their output, the same 4 outputs that we had before, no changes. So for those 4, I have put in on the test plan, I have put in 0 for the number of oil changes requested. So those come out the same as before. The last 4 are the same except for the number of oil changes. So these 4 are testing that oil change, new edition of the oil change offer. And they have different numbers of oil changes that have been requested. In fact, it might be advantageous to take a look at the disk file to see what that looks like. So I'll bring that, sitting right behind. So here's the disk file. It's created in Notepad, and you can see the first 4, Pluto, Asteroid, Pulsar, and Asteroid again. They're the same values for all the extras, and on the end is a 0 for the number of oil changes that are requested. For the last 4, they're the same, as I said, the same 4 tests for all the cars and the extras, except that the oil change request is 5342. So that'll make a difference in terms of the cost and price of the car as a package. This concludes the problem statement segment.